Good evening. The First Amendment to our Constitution is truly a wonder of human achievement. It separates us from almost every other nation on the planet, and we have a profound responsibility to defend it. My name is Matt Lejeune, and tonight we're talking about the freedom of the press. More broadly, the freedom of speech. The influence of politicians, commercialism, and concentration of media ownership is affecting more and more news outlets detrimentally and is limiting freedom of speech. Now, you're all of the age where you probably have some interest in being an informed and involved citizen. I doubt that very many of you are interested in the idea of having your choices and opinions made for you. You'd rather hear the facts, perhaps hear positions on both sides of a debate, and then make decisions freely. I agree. I have been exposed to many different news sources as I became interested in this topic over the last few years, and I have investigated those sources that above all valued objectivity, difference of opinion, things like this. Tonight I will attempt to get you thinking about the respect that the press owes you, to hopefully increase your awareness of the politically poisoned state of much of our news. I could not expect such thoughtfulness out of you unless I implicated some examples of inappropriate bias in today's news and offered up suggestions on where to begin looking for a more objective standard. I'm not interested, however, in being a commercial. I am more interested in the idea of introducing a new approach to news, a new engaged, interconnected sort of standard. So first, what is the state of media bias in the United States? It's not exactly news to most that there is supposedly a liberal bias in the mainstream media. A multitude of studies conducted over the last several decades do support this view. A 2005 UCLA study headed up by Tim Grosclose, researcher, found that 18 of 20 major media outlets studied were left-leaning. A 2002 study by researcher Jim Cuppers analyzed 116 mainstream U.S. newspapers, and found that the press is constrained to a rather narrow range of liberal beliefs. The New York Times, MSNBC, CBS, NPR were all mentioned multiple times. On the other hand, of course, Fox News is currently the highest rated cable news network, and multiple studies, including the UCLA one, have found it to be the right-wing response to the left liberal bias that many of us perceive it to be. Now, many of us probably watch some of these news stations, and you may say, I don't find that to be true. I feel like there is fair and balanced reporting in cable news or in newspapers. But this would follow studies that have shown that your opinion does seem to be influenced to think that what you have in front of you is the whole truth. And certainly the news outlets have a financial incentive to be presenting it this way. There's a study done in 2008 on the rise of MSNBC, left-leaning news outlet for sure, that found in many communities when MSNBC was introduced to the programming, the votership for the Democratic candidate increased in those districts by 17%. This is, of course, just one example. Now, an important thing to understand here is that bias is a human condition and it is inevitable. Bias is not innately wrong. However, it is journalism's professional duty to diminish it when found, and it is its imperative to never intentionally mislead. The Society of Professional Journalists sums it up thus: press freedom is the freedom from restraint without which a democratic electorate cannot make responsible judgments. Now, unfortunately, intentional misrepresentation is precisely what has happened in our news. The media is owned by a few enormous corporations with consolidated power and consolidated opinion. Now, as this happens, there is an increased incentive for news outlets to produce programming that protects their self-interests, both commercial and political, at the expense of accuracy and objectivity. Now, I'll pick on Fox News a bit more because it's so easy. The most egregious example on television, mainly because of their insistence on being fair and balanced. Its parent company, Rupert Murdoch's News Corp, donated $1 million to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce last year, in the middle of the year, as the 2010 Senate elections were in full force. The Chamber of Commerce at the time was pushing very hard for Republican advancement in Congress. Fox News' CEO, Roger Ailes, was a media consultant for Republican presidential candidates Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Sarah Palin, and Karl Rove, who was the deputy chief of staff for George W. Bush, are both on the payroll of Fox News. On the other hand, in the 2008 election cycle, MSNBC made 100% of its political donations to the Democratic Party. Now, these sorts of things I view as conflicts of interest, and they cannot stand. It's just a bit of evidence available that politicians have their hands in our media outlets, which is the opposite of free speech. Now, finally, we'll discuss solutions to this problem. What are they? Now, largely, the internet has put a dent in this maddening left-right fantasy of American life. Thankfully, as the flow of information increases and becomes more democratic, citizens are increasingly more likely to get their news from media such as blogs, new media, and they're more likely to fact-check claims they hear on television. Factcheck.org is a great watchdog site for this. NeimanWatchdog.org, which was founded at Harvard University, is another wonderful site. It encourages a spirit of accountability and a healthy skepticism in questioning politicians and questioning contributors. I encourage you to seek out news publications that put objectivity and multiple opinions as a high priority. And there are a number of these outlets. Now, they're not the big ones, but they do exist. For example, I have here for you a magazine that I've subscribed to for the last couple of years called The Week. The Week is a very short, very thin, very quick weekly news magazine that actually does not report on the news directly. What it reports on is the news outlets' reporting of the news. It is a summation of many news outlet stories, and what the magazine does is it presents one side of a debate from one outlet, and then it presents an opposing side. It may report on lifestyle, sports, a variety of things, but it always does so through quotes and summaries of other news outlets. And this is all in a pursuit to be as fair and as balanced as possible. Now, tonight I've attempted to raise awareness about a lack of credibility, objectivity, and fairness in the mainstream media. I hope that you will take this as a call to arms. We are now in the 21st century, not the 20th. We have a wealth of information at our fingertips, and it is our duty as citizens to hold our politicians accountable. The only way that we communicate with our politicians usually is through the media. And so therefore we have to hold the media accountable for informing us on our political and social decisions so that we can be the most informed citizenry that we possibly can. Thank you very much.